in terms of the coursework this week, I want to just kind of let you guys know my opinion, having done this for many years, and having gotten good feedback and some not so good feedback and everything else in between. I'm going to tell you that when you're trying to learn something that's presented in this format, where we have several days, day over day, and an awful lot of information to get through, that it's very easy for you to look at something that's being presented and say, oh, well, that's remedial, or that's too basic, or something like that, and kind of drift off and do something else. Mark is going to be teaching a very full, very comprehensive course, and a lot of the parts of that involve, kind of starting from scratch. In other words, saying, look, for whatever, you may already be a successful trader and you're here to just enhance some stuff, but the majority of the people that come to a class like this are here because they're really trying to put all of the pieces together. And I would encourage you to listen to all of those pieces as they come with an open mind, as though you are a brand new beginner, like it's the very first time that you're hearing it. And if you'll do that and try and take every step along the way, you'll realize that as it circles back, it is a very complete package, as opposed to just trying to get out of it, oh, well, teach me this setup or that setup. That mentality doesn't really work well over time, and you won't get out of this course what we really want you to. 3 things that I can highly recommend for this type of environment. The first one is to focus. I know that's easy to say, but it's very difficult to do. Okay, what I mean by that is turn off your email, turn off the ringer on your phone, and give this the attention that it deserves. You've paid money for it. I would highly recommend that you actually focus on the content. Even if it seems to be remedial, make sure that you're focused. Number 2, the second thing that you can do to get an awful lot out of this is actually participate. There's a lot of scientific evidence to the fact that passive participation, just sitting there and listening to something, or sitting there and glossing over something, basically has no benefit to you at all. Okay, so the more that you participate, ask questions, even if it's just taking notes about things that Mark's saying, and circling back to it, because a lot of things will obviously be answered. But I can't stress it enough. The more that you participate, the more you're going to get out of this. And so try, even if there's a language barrier or anything, there are no stupid questions. There's no need to feel as though you can't be part of this class, just as if it were in a lecture hall. So please try and participate. And the other thing that is what I would say the third thing that's very important for this type of kind of educational blast is to plan on pacing yourself. Generally speaking, nobody can sit down and absorb the actual information that's presented in a 3 or a 4 or a 5 hour, and particularly over a multi-day environment. What I would suggest that you do is have a notepad in front of you and pace yourself in terms of just keeping a few notes about things that you need to either revisit, you're not totally clear on, you want to make sure that you go back into the recording, and that way, essentially what you're doing is you're kind of giving yourself a mental break when you hit a wall, right? When something is just kind of getting overwhelming or boring and you want to drift off, instead of drifting off, make a couple of notes about it, maybe the time of the day or something like that. Because it'll take your mind off of it without leaving it completely. So those are the 3 things that I highly recommend everybody try to take advantage of, so that this course really delivers everything that we want it to. So with that, I'll cut over and let Mark take the show. This is really his show. I'm here to moderate. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to help anybody along the way, and I'll be participating in the course as well at times when I feel like nobody else is asking the question. So yeah, I certainly can. That's not a problem at all. Sorry, I didn't have any idea what you were talking about. Anyway, so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. This really is his course. He's what I believe put together something very comprehensive for OFA, not just something about volume profile, but something about essentially all of the pieces that we offer and how to put them together the right way. So, Mark, have at it, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you along the way.
Awesome. Thanks, DB. Just to make sure again, everyone can hear me fine. Just get a quick check. All right, great. Okay, thanks for the intro, DB, and all of the things that he said are correct. We're going to go through a significant amount of information, and we are scheduled to spend at least 2.5 hours a day. That will likely go longer, a couple of days, and I hope that's okay with you all. We're going to get into live charts. One of the things I don't really do is go back in history and show you how specific trades worked or might work. I have found in teaching that most people learn by going through a live chart to understand what's happening, and as either trades or setups or structure is being developed within the market, within the auction, most people can see it developing. They learn better by going through live charts. So this course is not going to be a series of a bunch of screens that I've set up from previous days. And as we go through this and learn, we're going to go through live information, current information, and most of it will be relative to the ES, because simply put, the ES has the most volume, and it's a great place to learn volume profile. In fact, the best place to learn volume profile. So I'm really excited about doing this course with you all. I have been trading with volume profile and order flow for quite a long time. And I truly mean this. This isn't a plug, but when I saw OFA, even just the framework of OFA, and understood what it does and how it was designed, my thought, my comment was, that's the way the auction works, and that's the tool I want to be using. So I'm very happy to be able to be doing this with OFA. So we're going to go through a little bit of orientation just to make sure that you understand how the days are going to go. First of all, every morning I'm going to make sure that you understand what we're going to go through throughout the day. So for each day, you're going to get a sense of what the activities are. And the first thing we're going to do is go through orientation. And talk a little bit about the way the course is laid out. Next thing we're going to do is talk about the actual installation of the indicator. I think that should be pretty easy. And then I want to talk about the market auction, and then go through the importance of order flow. Now, as DB said, there's probably everybody in here understands to some level market auction, order flow, and probably everybody understands it a little bit differently, which is great because it's going to generate different questions. So I'm very excited about the different questions to see where people are. And there's a good chance that everybody's using it maybe a little bit differently. So for example, some people may be using the structure chart. Some people may be using the order flow chart. Some people may be using the cluster analysis. Some maybe not be using the cluster analysis. So everybody probably sees the auction a little different way. And relative to volume profile, in order for you to get the most out of this class and to be able to use what you've learned here, not just for the ES, but into other instruments, it's really important that we all have the same understanding of market auction and order flow in order to move forward into volume profile. So the other thing we're going to do today is we're actually going to create a volume profile, and then we're going to look at the market profile, some elements of the market profile. It is a pretty significant component of the trading and different training. And then we're going to get into other indicators as we're going to go through the course, other levels, other key levels that we're going to want to track relative to the auction. So relative to the orientation, again, a couple things I just want to get out is I've designed this specifically and sequenced this specifically to teach traders how to effectively use volume profile using the OFA tools for trading. And when I talk about being able to use volume profile in different instruments, and we're going to go through that after you have the fundamentals down and kind of see how these pieces fit together. This isn't something, it's not like a Ronco tool or an all-in-one tool, a nice little handy-dandy utility knife. This is a understanding framework, understanding a market's architecture and structure so that you can effectively utilize the order flow print, the volume cluster analysis, momentum, the structure charts, all of the tools within OFA to be able to move to any other instrument that collects volume and effectively trade it, or at the very least be able to understand what is happening in the market between buyers and sellers. But it's important that we all have the same understanding. There's going to be homework assigned, so tomorrow we're going to have our first test, and then after that we have homework on days 3 and 4, and it's time, at that time it'll be a good time for review and questions. And it's your opportunity to learn. So I can't stress enough how important the homework will be to you learning. I want you to know every question is fair and a legitimate question, even if I've stated it before. If you don't understand something, and even if I've given an explanation, ask to go over it again. I will watch the time and make sure that I get through all of the content. But please feel free to ask your question. In fact, sometimes, many times, if you go back and look at the psychology of learning, people need to hear things sometimes 5 to 7 different ways before it finally sinks in and there's that aha moment. So I want to make sure that we do that. Again, I will monitor the time, so I encourage the questions, and I will also make sure that we have the time to get through all the materials. I want to make sure that I'm respectful of the time that was scheduled so that if people have specifically carved out this time, we can get through it for them. So for risk of missing core materials, I may ask to hold questions for Q&A sessions or towards the end of the day, but please just understand that's to make sure that we get through it all. There'll be a test initially for the fundamentals after tomorrow. It's not a graded test. It's just used to reflect the key elements of the fundamentals and generate questions. As I've taught the fundamentals of auction and volume profile, specifically the auction and the market, I have a lot of traders that say, yeah, we get that, we understand that. And to some degree, everybody does. But what I found with most traders is the fundamentals are not part of their trading. So when they actually get into trading, they kind of leave the fundamentals behind. And so it's important for us to make sure that we start with those fundamentals, which is what today is and tomorrow. Now, don't fret, we're going to get into the charts. We're going to start actually applying this stuff. Even today, we're going to get into a chart and start looking at the chart and the different levels and the auction and the order flow, etc. But every day is meant to build on each other so that when we get to day 4 and day 5 and we're actually in the market and we're looking at opportunities and trades and reading the print, reading the structure, creating trade plans, it all makes sense. So I would tell you that fundamentals are extremely important. Anything that you want to do well in. Take, for example, sporting activities. It doesn't matter what the sport is, whether it's golfing, football, baseball. Those who are stars in their sport, they spend a lot of time in the fundamentals. And it's also important that we all begin with the same base of understanding, which is why we're all going through this part together. And the ability to use volume profile, that's what I talked about earlier, across different instruments is directly related to how well understand and specifically can apply the fundamentals. So there are going to be things that you might see in a structure chart. There are going to be things that you may see in a volume cluster analysis and or in the print itself that may cause you to make a decision. And without the fundamentals, that decision may put you in a difficult spot in your trade. So I'm going to be using slides for teaching concepts and presenting information, but again, I'll be using charts and live market data for examples and practical teaching. So to some extent, we're going to go through presentations. and because we just need to get through the information. But as we move forward in the course, the template or the screen is going to be a live chart. So in order to take full advantage of the teaching and the time we have, again, I highly recommend you complete the homework and the assignments. That'll be on days 3 and 4. So real quickly, I want to go through the course overview so you get a sense. This is broken down into several objectives, which day 1 and 2, really going through the auction, the order flow, and volume profile, and make sure that by the time we get into day 3 and we start putting together trade plans and looking at trade execution, you understand how all the OFA tools, which represent the auction, and the volume profile work together. So we're going to go through market auction, order flow, some elements of market profile, specifically volume profile, and then tomorrow, after we get through the volume profile fundamentals and put these pieces together, there'll be a test for you. And then on day 3, really starting to understand using the volume profile as well as the print, understanding market context and trade planning. Learn how the auction process builds the profile, learn how to read the context in the profile, what are buyers and sellers trying to do across a longer term, mid-term, the different swings that may be across a week or several days, and in the short term, specifically intraday, and even specific swings within an intraday chart. We want to make sure that we identify the auction elements and the process of building a trade plan on day 3, so we can effectively build a trade plan based on the context of the market and what the auction elements are telling us buyers and sellers are trying to do and how effective they are in doing it. So on day 4, we're going to really put the auction and the OFA pieces together. We're going to go through a full homework trading plan process. We're going to build if-then scenarios. We're going to do that for the day. We're going to do that on the fly. So pre-market and developing day. We're going to talk about patience, when to have patience and when to take action. What specifically to look for in the print, what specifically to look for in the volume profile that begins to identify your opportunities for trade. And when I talk about opportunities, I'm specifically speaking to trades of a risk-reward ratio of 1 to 3 or 3 to 1. Now, one of the things somebody had asked me prior to the course is scalping. Can you use this tool for scalping? And I would tell you, absolutely, without question, you can use this method of trading for scalping. You have to define what that means to you. Then we're going to look at how to use the print, specifically order flow for risk management, how to use the profile, how to use combine the profile with the volume cluster analysis and momentum to identify your risk and manage your risk effectively. We know that not every trade is going to work. How do we get ourselves to the point where our risk-reward ratio is always in our favor and we are specifically managing our risk? We're going to talk about trade entry and management, and again, this is specifically using the OFA tools, the print, which is the order flow, the framework, the OFA Ninja framework specifically, and we're going to talk about this today. What about probe and rotation? Do those settings really matter? What about the strong and weak bid-ask setting? Do those things really matter, and when do they matter? So incorporating the order flow and print, and then we're going to talk specifically about trade psychology as it relates to trade entry and management. Now, what I know about traders is they can talk a good game. Most traders can talk a good game and say, oh, here, this is what the market's going to do, or this is where my trade is, and this is what my setup is. And then when it comes time to actually making that trade, the setup will occur, their level will come, and there's a part of them that's looking for all kinds of reasons, either not to get in the trade or for something to show up on the screen that says, okay, go long, you're not going to lose in this trade. And the point is as the moment of truth comes for the trade and you actually enter a trade, the human being, the human mind, goes from a level of objectivity into subjectivity, which means that your ability to read the print objectively significantly decreases once you get into a trade. And so we're going to talk about how all of these pieces can help you in your trade psychology so that you can maintain stops appropriately and let the trade work when appropriate as well. Where to take scales on your trade. How to improve your quote-unquote psychology so that you can use this method of trading effectively. So lastly, in day 5, we're not just putting it all together. We are together actually building a trading plan for the ES. And then we're going to do live trading. You're going to see my charts, specifically using the OFA tools. And then we're going to go through how to apply the volume profile analysis to other instruments. So we're going to look at thinner instruments like oil, the CL. We'll look at other indexes as well. And we're going to take a look at how to use the volume profile analysis in those instruments and what to look for. And I'm telling you, at that point, all of the stuff that we're going through today and tomorrow in terms of the fundamentals are going to start coming back. And the more that you can recall that and understand those fundamentals, the more ability you are going to have to apply VPA and I would say the OFA tools into other instruments. Understanding that other instruments, every instrument has its own unique flavor to it, and we want to look at the tools, use the tools in the same way relative to the fundamentals and the principles of the tools, but every instrument's going to have a different feel to it and a different nuance that we want to make sure that we are understanding. So for example, thinner volume versus thicker volume, thinner volume on the CL versus very thick volume, high volume on the ES. What do those things mean? And what do they mean relative to things like probe and rotation? What do they mean relative to volume cluster analysis and the strong and weak bid settings? How are those things changed effectively in other instruments to be an effective trader in order to read the auction? And then we're going to look at different market sessions as well and understand why with some instruments trading specific market sessions are important and how to trade specific market sessions. So some people are not just bound to the U.S. time frame and they like to trade maybe the European session. Some people may not be from the U.S. I want to show you how to specifically use a European session with the volume profile to effectively trade the ES and other instruments as well. And then lastly, we'll go through a Q&A session on day 5. Make sure in this day 5, you can probably expect to go longer than 2.5 hours. Probably once we start getting into day 3, 4, and specifically 5, we're probably going to take a good portion of the whole morning on day 5, and we'll see how much further we go from there. And again, I just want to respect people's schedules, but I wanted to let you know ahead of time that we'll probably go much further. So with that, that is the sequence of the next 5 days. And again, I've developed this specific sequence of training and information so that everybody can arrive at the same place at the same time. And specifically, I lean heavily at the front of this on the fundamentals, the principles of the auction, the principles of the market, so that we can build trade plans, we can identify change, we can effectively manage our risk using the market fundamentals, because sometimes what we see in the print and on a chart can fool us. And we want to make sure that the fundamentals are something that are a bedrock to our trading. So with that, I'm going to go through some of this relatively quickly. If you have questions on it, let me know. But what I really want to get to is some of the meat of this today, which is getting actually into the OFA tools, looking at probe and rotation, actually taking a look at the ES today relative to order flow and the auction, the stuff we're going to talk through today, so that I can actually start talking to it and you can start seeing it and experiencing it. So what's important to know is that the market path or the market is understanding and acceptance that it's just a place where buyers and sellers come together to transact business. Now, sure, there are things like high frequency trading, and there are things in specific stocks where there's insider trading, and maybe there's a lot of rigging here and there are dark pools where there are significant buyers waiting at a specific level and specific sellers waiting at a specific level.